The life of Édouard Manet. In a quaint corner of Paris where the Seine whispered secrets to the cobblestones, a young boy named Édouard grew up, surrounded by the comfort of an affluent family's embrace. His mother, with her gentle touch and love for music, filled their home with the soft strains of piano, while his father, a magistrate, brought the sternness of law and order. But young Édouard's heart beat to a different rhythm, one that danced with colors and light. As dawn broke over the city, Édouard would scamper down the narrow streets, his eyes wide with the wonder of the world around him. He was drawn to the artists, the painters who captured Paris's soul on canvas. His school days were spent in a haze of daydreaming, sketching in the margins of his books, much to the chagrin of his teachers. They saw a future in law for him, but Édouard saw only colors, shadows, and the play of light. His youth was marked by a failed attempt at naval school, a path laid out by his father, but Édouard's spirit was undeterred. Instead, he found himself under the tutelage of Thomas Couture, a painter of the old school. Here in the studio, among the smell of oil paints and turpentine, Édouard learned the basics, but his heart yearned for something more, something beyond the rigid lines of classical art. In his early years, Édouard was a frequent visitor to the Louvre, where he would sit for hours studying the masters, particularly the Spanish painters, Velázquez and Goya. Their work spoke to him in a language of bold strokes and dramatic contrasts, igniting a fire within him to break free from convention. As Paris bustled with life, so did Édouard's world expand. He traveled, soaking up the sun and scenes of Italy, where he painted with a newfound freedom. Back home, his days were spent in the vibrant cafes of Montmartre, where he met the bohemian artists who would later become the Impressionists. Yet even among them, Édouard was different, a bridge between the old and the new, a man caught between two worlds. His youth was not just about art. It was about challenging the status quo, about love and friendships, about the laughter and debates that echoed through the gaslit nights. He painted not just what he saw, but what he felt, capturing the essence of modern life in a way that would scandalize and inspire, laying the groundwork for a revolution in art that he himself would never claim to lead. And so, as the stars took their place in the Parisian sky, young Édouard, with his brushes and dreams, painted his way into history, forever altering the canvas of the world. In a studio bathed in the glow of a Parisian morning, the air thick with the scent of oil paints and turpentine, a canvas stood on an easel, waiting. Around it, the room was alive with the quiet chaos of creation. Brushes lay scattered like fallen leaves, palettes smeared with a riot of colors, and sketches pinned to the walls whispered stories of what could be. The painter, with a gaze that pierced through the mundane to the extraordinary, approached his canvas. His name was Édouard, and today he would pour his vision into a work that would challenge the very foundations of art. He named it Olympia. With a steady hand, he sketched the outline first, a figure reclining, her pose echoing the timeless beauty of Venus, but with a modern defiance. The woman on the canvas was not a goddess, but a courtesan, her gaze direct, challenging the viewer with an unapologetic presence. Édouard worked with a deliberate pace, each line a statement against convention. He mixed his colors, the hues of flesh, not just pink, but a palette of life's complexities, the warm tones of lived experience, the cool shadows of Parisian light filtering through the curtains. The background was subdued, almost dark, making her skin glow with an inner light, a contrast that whispered secrets of solitude and strength. As hours turned into a blur, he painted her cat, a black, enigmatic creature at her feet, its eyes mirroring the directness of her stare. This was no mere pet, but a symbol of independence, of the untamed nature of the woman portrayed. Édouard's brush danced over the canvas, capturing the silk of her robe with strokes that seemed to breathe, the fabric almost moving with each touch. The servant in the background, bringing flowers, was painted with less detail, her presence essential yet secondary, a nod to the social commentary he was weaving into the canvas. The room around him grew dim as daylight waned, but his focus never wavered. He layered the paint, giving depth to this modern Venus, whose vulnerability was her strength. whose gaze was a silent rebellion against the norms of beauty and propriety. The final touches were the flowers, not roses of romance, but an orchid, exotic and unexpected, placed by the servant. Each petal was a testament to Édouard's skill in capturing reality while bending it to his will, symbolizing the beauty found in the unconventional. As night cloaked Paris, the painting was complete. Olympia lay before him, a bold declaration of modernity, of art's new direction. In this quiet studio, amidst the remnants of creation, a masterpiece was born, destined to shock, to be debated, and ultimately to be revered. And so, with the city asleep around him, Édouard stepped back, his work done, his statement made. In the heart of Paris, where the pulse of art and culture beat strongest, stood the Salon de Paris, an institution that held the power to make or break an artist's career. The year was drawing to a close, and with it came the annual ritual of submission, a time of hope and trepidation for painters like Édouard. His studio, a sanctuary of creativity, was now a scene of quiet contemplation. Pinned to the wall, his latest masterpiece awaited its fate. It was bold, audacious, unlike anything the Salon had seen before. The canvas was a testament to his vision, his defiance against the norms of art. As winter's chill crept through the cracks, Édouard prepared his submission, wrapping his painting with the care one might give to a child. He knew the journey it would take, from his humble studio to the grand halls where the jury, the gatekeepers of taste, would decide its worth. The day of judgment arrived, and with it, the streets of Paris buzzed with the nervous energy of hopeful artists. Édouard carried his work, its weight more than just physical, down to the Salon. There, in a room filled with canvases, each one a dream, he placed his painting among the others, a silent prayer for acceptance whispered in his heart. Days turned into weeks, and the silence from the Salon grew louder than any rejection could have been. The city continued its dance of life, but for Édouard, time seemed to pause, each moment stretched with anticipation. Back in his studio, the room felt colder, the colors on his palette less vibrant. The rejection was a heavy cloak around his shoulders, but within it there was a spark of defiance. His art, his vision, was not for the Salon to define. He looked at his painting once more, seeing not just the rejection, but the potential for a revolution in art. As night fell, Paris slept, but Édouard's resolve burned brighter. He knew his path would not be easy, that he might have to fight for each stroke, each color to be seen. But in that moment of rejection, he found clarity. His work would speak not just to the elite of the Salon, but to the world beyond, to those who would understand and appreciate the beauty of the unconventional. And so with the city at rest, Édouard turned back to his canvas, his rejection a catalyst, not an end. The Salon might have closed its doors to him, but the world was vast, and his art was just beginning to find its voice. In the shadow of Montmartre, there was a café, its walls soaked in the smoke of cigarettes and the warmth of endless conversation. It was here, beneath the flickering gas lamps, that Édouard sought solace after the sting of rejection from the Salon. He pushed through the door, the familiar clatter of dishes and the hum of voices greeting him like old friends. The café was alive with the spirit of rebellion, where artists, poets, and thinkers gathered, their minds as open as the night sky. Édouard found his usual spot, a corner table where the air was thick with the scent of absinthe and the promise of change. Around him gathered his comrades in art, Monet, Renoir, Degas, all rebels in their own right. They were men who painted not for the Salon's approval, but for the love of light, color, and life. Édouard leaned in, his voice carrying the weight of his recent defeat, yet tinged with the fire of conviction. He spoke of his painting, of the vision that had been shunned by the traditionalists. His words painted pictures in the air, of a woman bold and unapologetic, of colors that sang of freedom from the tyranny of convention. The others listened, their eyes reflecting the shared frustration and the glimmer of a shared dream. "We must paint what we feel, what we see," Édouard declared, his hands animated, sketching his ideas in the space between them. "Not what they dictate we should see. Our art is not for the Salon alone, it is for the world." The conversation swelled. ideas bounced like light off a canvas. They spoke of exhibitions independent of the salon, of showing their work in the open air, in galleries owned by those who understood the new wave of art. There was talk of Impressionism, a term thrown about with both disdain and pride, a label for their mutual quest to capture the transient beauty of the moment. Laughter mingled with serious discourse as they imagined a world where art was not judged by a select few, but appreciated by all who saw beauty in the everyday. They envisioned a revolution, not of violence, but of vision, where every brushstroke was a declaration of freedom. As the night deepened, the cafe became their sanctuary, a place where rejection was not the end, but the beginning of something greater. They raised their glasses, not in defeat, but in toast to the future, to a time when their art would speak louder than any critic's pen. And so, beneath the stars of Montmartre, Édouard found not just solace, but inspiration. With each sip of absinthe, with each shared laugh and idea, the bitterness of rejection faded, replaced by the sweet anticipation of a new dawn in art. They would paint their revolution, one canvas at a time. In the heart of Paris, where the Seine's waters murmured of change, the Salon de Paris stood as a bastion of tradition, its walls echoing with the whispers of artists past and present. Édouard Manet, a name synonymous with both scandal and genius, had long danced on the edge of acceptance by this grand institution. But this year, there was a whisper of change in the air, a subtle shift in the winds of artistic judgment. In his studio, where canvases of defiance lay waiting, Manet worked with a different kind of fervor. Le Bon Bac, his latest piece, was not meant to shock, but to charm, to weave its way through the conservative tastes of the salon's jury. It was a portrait of simplicity, of a man enjoying a beer, his contentment captured in the play of light and shadow, the foam of the Bac as real as the laughter of the cafes. As the day of submission neared, Paris was draped in the crisp air of autumn, the leaves falling like the old ways of art. Édouard wrapped Le Bon Bac with a care that spoke of hope, of a quiet revolution in his approach. He knew this painting was different. It was a bridge, perhaps, to those who had once turned him away. The journey to the salon was one of silent prayers, of the weight of rejection carried less heavily this time. He placed his work among the others, each canvas a heartbeat of Paris's artistic soul. The days that followed were filled with the usual anticipation, the city's life continuing its dance. But for Édouard, there was a new rhythm, one of cautious optimism. When the list of accepted works was finally unveiled, there it was, Le Bon Bac by Édouard Manet. The news spread like the warm glow of a Parisian cafe at dusk. In that moment, the Salon, which had once spurned his vision, had opened its doors, not just to his painting, but to a new understanding of art. Back in Montmartre, in that familiar cafe where dreams were both born and buried, there was celebration. Glasses clinked, the sound mingling with the laughter of artists who had fought alongside Manet. Le Bon Bac was more than a painting. It was a symbol, a testament that even the most rigid structures could bend towards the light of innovation. Édouard, surrounded by friends, felt the weight of years of struggle lighten. His painting, once just another canvas in his studio, now hung in the hallowed halls of the Salon, a quiet victory for all who believed in the power of art to change, to evolve. As night fell over Paris, the city slept, but in the heart of one artist, there was a new dawn, a recognition that sometimes acceptance comes not from changing one's art, but from changing the way the world sees and builds. In the quiet of his Parisian home, where the light of day struggled through the curtains, Édouard Manet lay in his bed, the world outside moving on without him. His body was tired, the years of defiance against the canvas now taking their toll, but his mind, oh, it was still alight with the colors of his life's work. The city he loved, with its bustling streets and the Seine's gentle flow, had become a tapestry of his legacy. In these final days, visitors came, not just friends, but young artists, those whose brushes danced with the light he had taught them to see. They spoke of him with reverence, their voices soft, as if afraid to disturb the peace of his impending departure. Manet's studio, once a battlefield of creativity, now stood silent, save for the occasional rustle of papers or the sigh of canvases. His paintings, those bold declarations of a new vision, were scattered around, each telling a story of his journey. They whispered among themselves, tales of Olympia's defiance, the luncheon on the grass's scandal, and Labanbach's quiet triumph. In those last moments, as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across his room, Manet was surrounded by the echoes of his influence. He was not just an artist. He had become a legend, the father of Impressionism, a title he had never claimed yet was bestowed upon him by those whose art was now forever changed by his vision. The young painters, Monet, Renoir, Degas, and others, looked upon him not just with admiration, but with gratitude. They saw in him the bridge between the old and the new, the man who had dared to paint the world as it was felt, not as it was dictated. His lessons were not in technique alone, but in the courage to challenge, to capture the ephemeral beauty of a moment. As night approached, the city outside prepared for another evening of life, but here in this room, time seemed to pause. The air was filled with the scent of impending goodbye, of legacies left behind. Manet, his eyes now closing, perhaps saw in his mind's eye the vibrant streets of Paris, the play of light on water, the laughter in the cafes, all immortalized by his brush. When he passed, it was not just the end of a life, but the continuation of a revolution. His name would echo through time, not just in the galleries and salons where his works hung, but in every stroke of those who would follow. Impressionism, with its dance of light and color, would be his gift to the world, his final, enduring song in the symphony of art. And so, as Paris slept, unaware of the magnitude of the silence that had just settled in one of its homes, Édouard Manet's spirit joined the stars, his legacy as the father of Impressionism shining brightly, guiding the way for generations to come.